I want to begin with a story this morning, and this story falls into the category of be careful what you wish for. A friend of mine, a newly minted physician back in the 1960s, knew that he was about to be drafted into the Vietnam War, and so he opted to enlist in the Navy. They told him that if he enlisted, that he would have his choice of assignments. And so he said that he would like to serve on a ship in the South Seas. That sounds good, doesn't it? Fruit falling off the trees, beaches, beautiful women. The Navy, in its infinite wisdom, granted him that wish. Yes, he was sent to the South Seas, the far south, on an icebreaker in Antarctica. One of only a few professionals on board the small ship, he served as the ship's doctor, dentist, public health officer, recreation director, and minister. As the doctor, he was the first to take out an appendix at the South Pole. As a public health officer, he tried in vain to prevent his 18-year-old sailors from contracting venereal diseases when they stopped in port. One might imagine that he was disappointed that he ended up keeping company with a lot of penguins instead of basking in the sun. But actually, he reported this to be one of the happiest times of his life. Now, I've often asked myself why this experience brought him so much joy. And then I recently read a fascinating article by NPR correspondent Eric Weiner, in which Weiner says that according to something called the World Database of Happiness, Iceland consistently ranks as one of the happiest countries in the world. Now, in some surveys, it ranks #1 in happiness. So Weiner set out to visit this country and find out why. He visited in the winter, which is absolutely, unfailingly cold and dark. This would be the true test of Icelandic happiness, he thought. Weiner got off the plane at mid-afternoon and decided to take a nap, something which was easy to do because afternoon in Iceland looks a lot like midnight. Upon arising, he headed for the capital, Reykjavik, which he describes as a cosmopolitan village. The entire population of Iceland is only about 300,000. There he began to discover why Icelanders are so happy. Well, parents don't have to warn their children not to talk to strangers in Iceland, because in this small country, there are no strangers. People are constantly running into friends and acquaintances. In fact, it's commonplace for people to show up 30 minutes late for work because they've run into so many people they know on the way there. And this is considered a perfectly good excuse for being late to work. The city of Reykjavik is full of exceptionally creative people. It's full of art galleries and music stores and coffee shops where writers hang out. Now, why would this be true, Weiner wonders. He thinks it may have to do with the land itself. He says it doesn't just sit there, it hisses, it spits, it belches. Icelanders say that all this energy in the land itself is an inspiration to them. And then another factor. There is no fear of failure in Iceland. When Weiner asked an old-timer why there's so many creative people in Iceland, the man says it's because of failure. Failure doesn't carry a stigma in Iceland. We like people who fail, if they fail with the best intentions. And something else. Weiner says Reykjavik feels fleeting, temporary. Many of the structures are made from corrugated steel, and they look flimsy. This small city is, of course, surrounded by massive cliffs and mountains and the roaring sea. You feel that any minute, everything man-made could be gone, enveloped by the wildness of nature. It seems that Icelanders thrive on this sense of impending doom. For all of us, life is provisional. For them, it is obviously so. In such a climate, cooperation with others is mandatory, not optional. as in more favorable climes. Everyone must work together to be sure the fish comes in, the harvest is good, or everyone dies together. As Weiner puts it, interdependence is the mother of affection. So, where would you rather live? In the South Seas or in Iceland? The Icelanders do not have an easy life. The next meal does not drop from the mango tree. And if you wander off in the wrong direction, you could die in minutes. But Icelanders seem to have what we all need: a fierce connection to one another, creative energy, freedom to try and to fail, and the absolute necessity to live in relationship with nature and to live in the precarious moment. The fascinating thing to me about Icelanders and all those who live in challenging climates, whether they be geographical or physical or emotional, is that so often it is the very challenge itself that stretches and hones us, that makes us more interesting, more creative, more compassionate human beings. Now, it's not that I think that suffering is a good thing, but let it be said at this point that everyone suffers. Everyone. When things go wrong, it's easy to look around and think, well, everybody else is okay. I'm the only one who is in pain. But believe me, as a minister, I have learned that everyone is hurting about something. Everyone experiences loss, times of keen disappointment. Most of us have had times when we have fallen into despair, when the ground beneath us seems to just give way and nothing seems to be holding us. And I would venture to say that almost everyone has at one time or another even asked themselves, is life worth living? And so when we come to these dark places in our lives, interludes when our sense of joy vanishes, during these times, we have just two ways to go: either acceptance and transformation, or bitterness and despair. As I said, I would not wish pain or tragedy on anyone, and yet, paradoxically, we so often discover that what we endure and transcend gives our lives a patina, a richness and depth and beauty it would never have had we not experienced the pain and the loss. Well, that's easy to say, of course, but how do you move from terrible loss to personal transformation? It's not that the loss disappears, of course. No, it doesn't. Memory remains alive in our very flesh. But it becomes a woundedness that somehow teaches us and changes us for the better, and ultimately can bless the world around us.